Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Big Blonde and Beautiful, the podcast. If you're new here, my name is Carolina Howie, and each episode I pick a piece of media with that representation in it, and I discuss the positive and the negative. This week is our season finale. As you can see, I'm by myself, and I haven't done an episode alone in a while, so I hope that you all enjoy it. For the finale episodes, I like to pick a topic rather than a specific piece of media, and so this finale episode, I'll be talking specifically about Bat villains. Now, I do have a really short bonus episode on this topic, but for this episode, I wanted to try to go more in depth on the topic. If you take the time, like I did, to do some Googling, it really isn't hard to find fat villains. They're everywhere and in a lot of media. But on the other side, it's a lot harder to find fat heroes. On the villain side, we have characters like the iconic Ursula from The Little Mermaid, or Mary Sanderson from Hocus Pocus, Miss Trunchbull from Matilda, and so many others. But on the hero side of things, we have a few from old Marvel comics, Po from Kung Fu Panda, which, I mean, who doesn't love Po? And Shrek, and maybe you could count Mr. Incredible. But even when the fat character is the hero, they still play into a lot of fat stereotypes. I mean, Mr. Incredible, he even loses weight in his movie. Also, there are characters like Big Bertha from Marvel Comics, who I just learned about doing the research for this. Her superpower is essentially her fat, which at first I was kind of like, that's messed up. Like, why is she this huge caricature of a fat person, like literally called Big Bertha? But honestly, while I was thinking about it, it's kind of cool that fatness is her superpower, because fatness is, as we're gonna find out here, so villainized. It's nice to see the few times when it isn't seen as a moral failure. While you can sometimes find the rare fat hero, fat villains are everywhere. The biggest theme that I found with fat villains in my research is that they are primarily in children's media. Many of the villains I found are from the beloved Disney company. And it got me thinking, what is this teaching kids? We may not realize it, but media informs us in a lot of ways. Whether unconsciously or consciously, we're informed, and these are informing us about fat people and fatness in general. Fat villains are literally the physical embodiment of all the negative stereotypes that society piles onto fat people. These characteristics include varying combinations of greed, gluttony, laziness, poor hygiene, being unlovable, being unattractive. It also reinforces this idea that thin is inherently good, whereas fat is inherently evil. Or, as I said before, it is a moral failure. There is also tends to be a huge contrast, especially in Disney, between the villains and the heroes or the heroines. All you have to do is look at popular Disney princess movies. All the Disney princesses. Until very recently, I would say the only one I can really think of that doesn't fit like the normal figure of a Disney princess would be Moana. If you can think of any others, let me know, but that's the only one off the top of my head that I can think of. So we have that, but she still would be considered thin. And there is not one fat heroine in a Disney movie that I can recall. This is in stark contrast to the villains in these movies. Now, obviously, the princesses, not proportional in any way. Literally, their waist is like this big. That is not realistic. But do little girls know that? No. I mean, I grew up, I wanted to be like one of the Barbie princesses from like Princess and the Pauper. So, we aren't thinking of that at such a young age, but we are taking in that the characters that we look up to look a certain way, whether or not we realize it or not. It's especially harmful to young girls. It shows them that in order to be beautiful and romantically attractive, they have to fit very strict beauty standards. And unfortunately, that doesn't ease up as you get older. Honestly, sometimes it just gets harder, I would say. And if they don't fit those beauty standards, they're seen as bad, ugly, unlovable, aka fat. We're teaching kids from such a young age that fat is the worst possible thing you can be. I cannot tell you how many times I have been at work, and if you haven't listened to previous episodes, I work in childcare. And I have a sticker on my water bottle that says Fat Femme. And some of the older kids will be like, what is that? What does that mean? And I'm like, oh, Fat Femme, and I'll explain it to them. And they're like, you're not fat. And I say, yes, I am. And, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's literally just a body type. It is okay. So, again, it's just teaching kids at such a young age. You'd be amazed how young kids learn things like fat phobia and racism and homophobia. And that is directly correlated to their parents and to the media that they are consuming. It is also very conflicting as a fat person to see these types of movies, especially ones that are made with real people and not animated, where the fat villain is played by a thin actor or actress. Because Hollywood is constantly telling us that we aren't able to be hired. We aren't good enough because our body type doesn't fit the norm. But then they turn around and they cast a thin actor and they put them in a shitty fat suit. And it's like, what the fuck? It's so conflicting and frustrating. Just why? It would be so nice if this practice of putting straight size actors in fat suits was a distant memory. It would be amazing. But unfortunately it's not. And another thing that really frustrates me is whenever I see interviews of people talking about how long it took to get into these prosthetics.
To test out the authenticity of the suit, I understand you went to a bar in New York, and that must have been very bizarre.
It was very bizarre because nobody knew it was me, obviously, underneath. And I'm a person who's used to being stared at everywhere I go and sort of made to feel like an outsider in that way. And then this way, I made to feel like an outsider because nobody would acknowledge me at all. Nobody would even make eye contact with me. So it was quite painful.
For this role, and it's for a fat suit. And I'm like, guess what, babes? You didn't need to go through that. It's not impressive that you made it through, getting into the prosthetics, them being hot, like whatever else was uncomfortable about it. It sucks because you are taking away a role that should have gone to fat people. And not only that, but you're playing a villain, much like many other fat roles, if they aren't the funny sidekick or the very, very distant background character. It's just, like I said, so very frustrating to see that. And we don't have a lot of roles out there, and we definitely don't have a lot of positive roles. And so it's just like, can we catch a break, please? Some examples that I had written down of straight size actors being in fat suits is the villain in Dune, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of because I haven't seen it and I don't know how to pronounce it, which is played by a thin actor. Probably going to pronounce his written name wrong as well. Stellan Skarsgård. Then we also have the Penguin, played by Colin Farrell. And then, you go back a little bit, Fat Bastard, played by Mike Myers. So, again, these things aren't distant. They're very close. And we just constantly have these villain roles. And also, not only is it informing young kids, what their body needs to look like, it is also informing fat young kids that their body's not okay. That it's something that's bad, something to be, embarrassed about or ashamed of, which I think is just the most horrendous part of this. And I know that people are going to be clickety-clacking on their phone or laptop or whatever they're listening to this on and say, well, Kara, someone has to play the villain. And I would say, duh. Obviously, you have to have a protagonist and an antagonist. But the problem is that there are so many more fat villains and fat heroes. And yes, obviously, are there skinny villains? Sure. But it's also not backed up by the fact that society is pushing these stereotypes and ideas of thinness in the way that they are with fatness. The world tells us that fatness is inherently bad. And so this is just, again, reinforcing that. And it's like, we get it. Y'all don't like fat people. And the thing is, I don't necessarily have a huge problem with fat villains. I definitely feel that they need to be fleshed out, like they need to be three-dimensional. But like Ursula, I love Ursula. I literally used to pretend to be her in my pool at home when I was little. Like I didn't want to be well, I did want to be Ariel. I would kind of play both roles. But I really loved playing Ursula. I don't know what this is about me. I don't know if it's because I saw myself in her or if I just found her character more interesting than Ariel. Because let's be honest, she's very boring. She's very boring. So, honestly, in conclusion, obviously, we have to have villains in films, or else, like, what's the point of the film? But we need more diversity in the roles that fat people are being cast in. And we just need more fat people to be cast in general. I want to see more fat heroes. I want to see more storylines where fatness isn't even a factor, just so that things become more balanced. So that when there's a fat villain, it's not like, oh my God, another fat villain. You know what I mean? So hopefully we can start making more of that in the near future, and it can kind of become more balanced, and we can stop teaching audiences, and especially children, Disney, I'm looking at you, that fatness is inherently evil or bad. That is simply a body type. All right, well, I think that is all for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, this is my cat, by the way. He keeps coming up here. He would like to say the outro. Okay, ready? Okay. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, rate us 5 stars, subscribe, follow, do all the things. We're also on social media. I'll have all of our stuff linked down below. What else is there? You're distracting me. Look at this guy. He's so cute. That little guy. And of course, this podcast is, made by me, produced by me, edited by me, scripted by me, all things by me. So anything that you can do, sharing, liking, following, rating us means the world. And until season 5, stay fat and fabulous. Bye.